corporate lunch, and this discussion is going to be so interesting that you may not doze off. So unajua kishakula tunataka kulala. So I hope it's going to be very interesting for you to be attentive, listen, and engage in this discussion that we're going to have. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mr. Nicholas to take over the stage. Thank you very much. Karibuni.
Asante Aisha. Habari zenu tena. Umechoka kunisikiliza mimi, si ndio? Kwa hivyo tutawakaribisha wengine kuongea, au? Okay, so now we are going to be inviting panelists to be giving their reaction to the strategy. And we have 3 panels this afternoon. The first panel is from government officials. So they'll be speaking about policy issues and service delivery issues. The second panel will be, we have members from the private sector here to talk about, from a private sector perspective, how do they see engaging. And the third panel is with development partners. So all 3 of those constituents or stakeholder groups are really essential to help Zanzibar meet this strategy. So we have moderators for these panels. Our first moderator, I will introduce him, is Dr. Twahir Halfan. Dr. Twahir has over 15 years of experience as a financial economist, social security expert, and policy analyst. He's previously worked as a senior researcher and policy analyst at the Social Security Regulatory Authority for the United Republic of Tanzania. He's developed the Tanzania Resource Mobilization Strategy for the National Multi-Sector Nutrition Plan, working for the Prime Minister's Office for the United Republic of Tanzania. He was also working for the World Bank team that assessed the impact of investments on Social Security funds and on the capital markets. He's currently a Research and Policy Engagement Director for the Zanzibar Research Center for Socioeconomic and Policy Analysis, ZRCP, and as you can see, they're one of the collaborators for this convention. Dr. Twahir, welcome. And also at this time, may I ask all the government panelists to please come on stage at this time. So if you've been designated as a panelist, please come to the stage now.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Twahir, and I think Nick did give a very extensive introduction, so I don't need to introduce myself very much. And I will be moderating this session. And basically, we'll start, the panelists will discuss a couple things which are not planned, so just go with the flow. And my main role will be, because looking at the audience, it is obvious the voices of private sector are not much visible. I'm sure they are, but not much visible, and also the community. So we'll try to capture as much as possible how their voices were considered and will be considered going forward in the implementation of strategy. So most of my question will be based on this area. So before starting to ask questions to all panelists, and I'll go one by one in that order. Would like them to briefly introduce themselves, who they are, what, in a very brief manner, what they have been doing, and what are, most importantly, what are currently their portfolio. So I'll start with Dr. Huda, like now, so women first and the gender balance. So I'll start with her. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, I will take this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Huda. I am currently lecturer of economics from State University of Zanzibar. At the same time, board chair of Zanzibar Social Security Fund. I could have some views on the private sector as I was raised in a very entrepreneurship family, and I do enjoy entrepreneurship. I think for now I'll stop there.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill. I am the Commissioner for Public and Private Partnership. Before that, I worked at the President's Office as economic assistant to economic affairs to the President of the Revolutionary Government of Zanzibar. Prior to that, I've worked with a number of institutions from Ministry for Finance, Central Bank, Exim Bank, you name it. My other profession is a banker by profession, so I am a proud banker besides that. But also I've worked as an academic, as a university lecturer for the Institute of Finance Management. And today I'm a member of a panelist, that's it.
My name is Dr. Mzee Suleiman Mlewa. Currently I'm Director of Communication, Ministry of Infrastructure, Communication and Transport, the Zanzibar Government. And I am Chairman of Advisory Board of the Government Zanzibar, and also I am board member of Tanzania Regulatory Authority TCRA, and I'm also technical team of space exploration in Tanzania, and also I'm technical team. I build a backbone network in Tanzania mainland, and also I build a backbone network in Zanzibar, optical communication infrastructure, and also currently I'm technical team of building Institute of ICT Center of Excellence is mainland. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Salim Slim. I'm a professional. I'm a public health practitioner. My current role is a Director of Preventive Service at Ministry of Health, with the core function of taking care of primary health care and all the program in relation to disease control and prevention. Before that, I was a lecturer at London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine as an infectious disease practitioner, infectious disease epidemiology. Prior to that, I was part of molecular biologist at the University of Chatham in the United Kingdom. And I also pioneer to go into different area of researches that are related to human health in both in health and disease state. And I have core interest in infectious disease, policy, and health system strengthening. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Amir Shah. I'm currently Commissioner for Economic Management in the Planning Commission in the Ministry of Finance and Planning. But I have been serving with the government at various posts. Of the current, I have been a Commissioner for Economic Empowerment at the Ministry of States, Economic Affairs and Investments. But also, I have been serving a lot of posts through as a Commissioner for Economic Investments. I'm a founder of the economic empowerment in Zanzibar, but as well as I'm heading sometimes the startup programs, which was run by the World Bank, supported by the government of Zanzibar. And I have been working with the private sectors or multinational organization. I have been working with the GTZ sometimes as a program facilitator for the program under water services and health support in Mende and Tanga regions. As now, I will be panelist discussing the issues on the policies and planning and economic management in the Zanzibar. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this extensive round of introduction. I'll start with Dr. Mzee for a simple reason. You are the holder of the national policy as far as ICT is concerned. So I have to admit, and correct me if I'm wrong, when I had the strategy first, I was a little bit concerned because usually it's a policy that starts and then comes the strategy. So, but there's a first time for everything, and maybe that's part of innovation. So, just like to hear from you, or how can the review of the ICT policy that's going to be aligned with the strategy, so we avoid having multiple, having two important documents that really don't speak to each other. That's one. And two, at the same time, how the review of policy will ensure the engagement of private sector. Because one has to admit that the government is making good progress in terms of, digital sphere. Various initiatives from payment, from, system of employment records. But in the private sector, the progress is not as much. So what's your thinking at the ministry, that things that need to be kind of created a policy framework to ensure that private sector will be participated, because that's the most probably effective way for addressing all the issues that people of Zanzibar, and especially the notion or the perception that of valid concern that they were left behind. So that's my two first question to you. So you can start with that, and then I'll have a follow-up question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your good questions. First of all, let me thank God to make us active here, and also let me declare my interest. I am chairman of the Executive Board of the government, so my role just to support this strategic plan, and also to support the goals of the government, and also to support the objective of the IGA. Come back to your question. I think it is clear to me that digital strategic and the policy are clear, a cause and effect relationship, because there is a relationship between technology, people, and process, and data, and customer care, and other pillars. Because if you have a good strategy and a good policy, it means that you are going to achieve the benefit, or we're going to achieve your goals. Come back to how I support from my ministry. As you know that my ministry, it's slowly just to implement a good infrastructure, and also regulations and laws that facilitate the business environment. As a Minister of Infrastructure and Communication, we have already built advanced technology by using fiber optic cable. It means that all 11 districts in Zanzibar, fiber is deployed. So it will be easy to this strategy because infrastructure are in place. And second is the human capital. As you know that through my department, the government of Zanzibar has 11 community center, ICT community center. These ICT community centers provide a digital skill to the citizen. It means that when this strategy is going to be implemented, and as you know that our citizens are ready to use this digital technology. And also when you see or when you look digital ecosystem, you have started from the device, software, hardware, and governance. This means that our people now can engage through this initiative which are provided by our government. And I think come back to our second question, how private sector can collaborate with the public sectors. We initiated a program, or we initiated a program with the stakeholders such as Zanzibar Research Center of Police, and also with the collaboration with the Tony Blair Institute and the President Deliverer. Also we engage them, and also UNCDF also. We are together to review our previous policy. So the platform which we have initiated between private sector and the public sector, it means that it will focus further development of a digital transformation in Zanzibar. I think let me stop here. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up question, because I think it's good to hear that the government is planning to, reposition EGOVs into a ministry that are dealing with ICT. So that's a very good progress. But there is, looking at the strategy, there's a very serious concern, because government is going to be ZECA, I believe, and it's from the document it's going to be very a powerful institution in terms of responsibilities. So you being on both sides, as ICT director and board chair of e-government, Dr. Mzee, don't you have any concern that a lack of progress especially when power is concentrated in single organization, might limit the progress of digital transformation? Because as we have heard all this morning, we need to move in exponential growth. So how do you view this, all this power in this space to be in a single organization, and what plan government has to ensure that it is able to perform the planned task?
Thank you for your good question. But when you say digital transformation, I think to me it's clear that in order to have a good digital transformation, everything starting from the people. When you have skilled people, when you have innovative people, your journey will start in the right hand. So according to our environment here, to be sincere, we have a lot to do. First, let us to collaborate with the private sector. Government, its own It's not easy to achieve digital transformation in Zanzibar. Let us engage public sector, and also don't forget to give our citizens digital literacy, because if you have more digital literacy, it's not easy to achieve digital transformation. And others will follow, like good infrastructure, good policy, or good regulator and laws governing the sector. But also don't forget professionalism, because you have to balance between internal and external capability. If you don't balance, it's not easy. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll move next to Dr. Slim and have some few questions for you. Let's start with the big picture. The strategy is clearly stipulated that the Ministry of Health will establish a data center, which most of the health are based there. And it's rather unfortunate that, seemingly the Ministry of Health has so many data and they are project-based. Project finished and data has become more or less useless. So can you tell us more about which you are planning for this initiative?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I must admit, my ministry is actually really direct to the public. We do have a very complex interaction or very close interaction with the public, because we become a point of service. Everybody in this hall at some point has been a patient or is a patient to be expected. So we do gather information in terms of data. And the most important of, if you look at health system pillar, one of which is the information system. And for example, if you provide a service in primary health care where most problems do happen, and in terms of health facility, we do have approximately 168 of them across Zanzibar. And obviously for each and every case, has ought to be documented for different reasons. Say for example, we need to know what's the trend of the disease at the moment. What is the commonality of the disease in the context that we're giving. Say for example, if we have a diarrhea in north of Unguja, it's only data that can able to tell us what's really going on. If we had measles outbreak or something like that. So we rely on data, but these data are actually captured where it happened, and then they get pushed to the central government using the linkage, and then we get them captured in our DHSI2. But we have other parameters that allow us to able to see what's happening at the grassroots level. But if that's not enough, digital transformation has enabled our ministry to able to understand electronic medical record. Every patient that comes in our hospital have got to be logged in record. When we collect all this information later on, we can able to sit down and say what are the common diseases that were presented at that sort of time. And then same data, you can use them on the same year after and say, no, last year this time we were at this pace, but this year seems to have the prevalence has increased, right? So we are about to embark into something, be it an outbreak, be it anything. But the most important is when we dispense drugs, right, in our healthcare outlet, some of them can able to document, and majority of top 10 disease in Zanzibar are infectious disease related. So a patient can have a piece of paper and can go to one healthcare and request medication, which is antibiotic, And then he can go to another health center with the same piece of paper and get another antibiotic. And then we build up antibiotic resistance because it's either underused or misuse of the drugs. If we could have a way of understanding when this patient went to the health clinic, been provided to a medication of certain type, then by the time the same patient go to another place, we say, hang on in a minute, right? You have been to a place XYZ and you've been prescribed XYZ.
That's a brilliant point.
Right.
And I have to ask a question from what you said, because given your Calibrian experience, it must be, I mean, shocking or disappointing to see that at a local level, people still using textbook to record their, medical.
Yeah.
Yes. So the strategy and all what you say, how and when.
What I'm trying to say to you is the strategy is more like a roadmap. The strategy is a plan on what we want to implement in such a given time. And the strategy we plan to solve a problem. And we realize that doing so, using the paper, we require different innovation. And the innovation we require is to utilize. And what we've done is to make sure each and every Zanzibari has a card that was provided by one of our partners called Pharma Access. Right? They have been given a card, so now when they visit in health facility, the card has barcode. That barcode gets tracked in, and then we can able to record that patient, and then we can able to see the movement of the patient. That now, which means we have overcome the problem of over prescribing the drug to a patient. But we have to remember we are a very low resource income country. We can utilize our resources without a special manner. So now we can able to designate the drugs to a patient, but also that same patient cannot go to another center to able to get the same medication again like it used to be. But having said that, we have a broader version in our strategy. When patient attended the primary health care, and if the problem has not been able to be fixed, we need to be able to communicate with another referral level, be it district, be it referral. My apology, right? So we are not there yet, but we require a mechanism for this hospital to be interconnected so that when a patient is moved, the doctor on the other side can prepare themselves knowing what's coming. At the moment, we use a phone call and that's where we have gaps, but in our strategy, we outline that the requirement is needed to overcome such problem. For example, another issue that I can able to express to you on how our Minister of Health have managed to make best use of digital technology. Say, for example, COVID, right? When COVID comes, we are the only sector that have to deal with people on one-to-one basis, right? So we did the endeavors, but across intervention for vaccination, say for example, when you did vaccination, we ensure that each and every person we actually inoculate go in the data. So now we know where we are pacing in terms of our vaccination uptake, and that will explain the world on how much Zanzibar has managed to cover in their COVID vaccination, which translate on how safe we are in the country. So without this information and communication with outside world, it won't be impossible to able to have people who come here for tourism if our country doesn't have a mechanism to inform them how safe we are. So this is a trend, but definitely my ministry definitely is a great user of this digital technology, and we have achieved some milestone, but we have huge gap that we probably require to close in order to reach 2023, 2027 assignment per se. Thank you.
That's great. Just yes, I'm not done. Just one or two more questions.
No problem.
So, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And just given the importance, your ministry, so I have two very brief question, and I'm a layman in health domain, but at least I know that technology can help a lot in curing and also preventative treatments. So can you tell us, based on this strategy, because there's a thing called e-health, how will that improve? What kind of initiative you think of telemedicine?
Yes.
And that.
Yes.
So but that's first. Secondly, you can also together in the document, the public sector, sector strengthening, system strengthening is it's only mainly USAID program feature. So can you also tell us, do you have any plan? Is it to include other partner or what's government? Because it's a very important component, but it's largely based on the USAID.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I should not be the only person to be clearly evident that Zanzibar health sector is sprouting. And obviously our president pays in terms of improving our health sector has probably outpaced most of people's expectation. But we really need to ask ourselves in terms of digital technology. In my own perception as a director, I say the pace of what the government is doing has kind of left us a bit behind. But nevertheless, we have other alternatives such as telemedicine. Now we plan to digitalize all of our district hospital. They will be talking to each other, right? And in that per se, if you have a specialist in one side, but the case of such specialist is presented on the other side of the hospital, the doctor can able to communicate on intervention toward a patient, and hence we can able to utilize what we call telemedicine and able to get a better patient outcome, and the other doctor on the other side can able to deal with other innovation. But if that's not enough, company or our partner such as USAID's PATH, MDH have been very instrumental to able to come into our rescue and making sure that we kind of adopt the mechanism of digital health in Zanzibar. But I must admit, with all this success, we still have gap that require to be filled if we are to really reach the peak of 2027 eGov a proposal that has been highlighted here. Minister of Health is definitely committed to see more partner coming our way to kind of support our initiative and support where we think we require some mitigation to enable to close gap in our need in improving this, because without data, correct data that we collect, there will be no policy that will be based, evidence-based policy, right? So our minister will be waiting for data that will be captured down there in order for him to say, this is not the way it goes. We make decision by going that way. And through that, we require those gaps to be actually filled.
Thanks a lot.
And, no problem.
Good, you mentioned very important point about limited physical space, which is very obvious. And I will move to Dr. Bill, then Dr. Who next? Dr. Bill. Yes. So I'll start with Dr. Bill. Can you tell us current portfolio, PPP, public-private partnership, what initiative do you have or envision that can be, that are fitting with the strategy?
Oh, thank you very much. Basically, PPP, what we are doing at the ministry, we are just coordinating the PPP projects. And when we are saying coordination is that we are helping the line ministry to implement a PPP project. And this goes to the regulation or the act that was enacted in 2015, whereby we were given the mandate to be the coordinator for all the public projects that involve engagement with the private institution. And hence, from that, we are responsible in terms of trying to transform the idea into becoming a bankable project, and then from there onwards engaging the private entity to ensure that the private entity meets what we expect as a government. But not only that, also to build that sustainable relationship with the private entity to ensure that when they implement the project, until they hand over, it meets its expectation. So that is in a nutshell as a PPP department. And so far, well, before I joined, we didn't have any projects that are PPP, but now we have around 3 projects that are actually ICT related. These projects have a worth of around $350 million, and one is to build what we call this international gateway, in which in this project the implementing authority is Zictia in collaboration with a private entity which is known as Mandela 2, whereby they are building the international gateway. In Zanzibar, we don't have our own gateway, and this will be the first one which the government also will be engaged into the establishment of that gateway. I believe gateway, some members know what is it. It's a fiber optic infrastructure. The second project is for the establishment of a cyber city in collaboration with Threefold. I believe I've seen some members from Threefold here, but this is another project of PPP, which has a market value of around $150 million. The third project is to establish what we call a data center and what we call this incubation hub in collaboration with another company. All of these are ICT related projects. Now, what do we have in our portfolio? We have about 9 projects that are in the pipe which are available for investment. And these, though they are not related to ICT, but some of them, they are related to ICT. I'll give an example. For example, we have a project to build a data center, a Tier 3 data center. We have a project whereby the government is also planning to build its own payment system in collaboration with the private partners. So these are the projects that are in the pipeline. Similarly, also in PPP, those are solicited, but also we have unsolicited projects. And in unsolicited projects, some of the projects that are in the pipeline is there are companies that came with ideas that they would like to share with the government. For example, when you look at this digital switch, usually when you have a digital switch, you have to integrate with the government because we cannot allow a private entity to be involved comprehensively itself. So there has to be an engagement with the government. So we have those kind of a project in the pipeline, but also there are also some upcoming projects as well. So I don't want to disclose the value because they are still in the negotiation, but when the right time reaches, we will inform the public. So far we have around 350 million worth of projects that are already signed.
That's encouraging, and of course a digital, technology, especially digital economy, can help to attract more investors. And also, that's one way. The second way is the private participation of local content of the private sector. And as we heard, this is it's very true that local private content of private sector is being left behind in many strategic sectors. So in PPP, do you have any strategy? Do you have an initiative to make sure that private sector, local component of private sector are truly integrated into PPP?
Yes, it's a good comment and it's a good question. And I wanted to say one thing is that the private sector engagement, this policy, the digital policy, will harmonize the way we develop our digital ecosystem. Why? Because we have seen a number of interests from different angles coming into Zanzibar with a desire to provide service, to build application, to build infrastructure. Now we need a strategy that will enable us to build a very focused implementation. As my colleague said, a strategy is mainly, it's like a roadmap, which how and where do we want to reach in the next 2 years. So it will help us to have a focused implementation. Now, what are we going to do as a PPP? Because most of these things, you cannot leave it with a private entity, but rather you need an engagement in which we can form partnership. You see, in Tanzania, we were in a period of transformation from socialism to capitalism. But unfortunately, we somehow loop from what we call national framework, institutional framework, into more of a privatization. Now, partnership is in between privatization and government operation, in which here, what happens is that as a government, we give the private entity what we want. And then when we invite the private entity, we are actually giving them access to provide us a service. So we have a number of opportunities which we can engage the private sector. For example, I'll give you an example. In the section of revenue there, especially the non-tax revenue, we have the opportunity there to have an engagement with the private entity in which it can help us to improve our collection system. Why? Because here in the country, some of the areas we are still having, we are at an infant stage in terms of how do we collect our non-tax revenue. In terms of the tax revenue, we have improved, yes, but in the non-tax revenue, some of the challenges that we face is we don't have the infrastructure. So when we invite the private entity, we allow them to give us the experience. We allow them to share us with the risk as well. And also, we build that ecosystem which eventually, after a certain period of time, we will be able to run by ourselves. So in our perspective, we just create that enabling environment. And we have already started that. For example, we have reviewed the Investment Act to accommodate ICT-related companies. We have also reviewed the PPP Act to allow unsolicited projects. Why? Because we believe that the private sector, they are more experienced, they are more innovative, and hence they can come up with new ideas which we can work together to achieve what we desire.
Thanks a lot. We'll move to Dr. Huda, and maybe I'll continue in the same line, and I'll ask you two questions. One, in your role as the board chair of Zanzibar Social Security Fund, or rather two questions, brief ones, and one as a researcher at the Zanzibar State University. So how can ZSSF, what role you think can play to finance some of the initiatives in the digital economy that's been discussed in the strategy, because ZSSF is the largest local investor. So what role do you think going forward to diversify from building, concentrating mostly in the buildings, not the bricks, to digital investment? How do you, what's your opinion about that?
Okay, thank you very much. Quite tricky question on the investment part. But for sure, we have reaped the advantages of digital transformation at ZSSF. I say by what we do right now with we're doing process automation, and that has allowed us to increase our customer service and even decrease the time to benefit payment. So on our side, we have. I can say we are very thankful even to the Ministry of the Infrastructure, because without the correct infrastructure, we cannot connect between ZSSF here, Zanzibar and Pemba, and the CAG office and the AG office. All these right now are interconnected. That's how we can improve our customer service. And we, to some extent, we have seen the benefit of it. And in terms of investment, I think we are starting to see it, like in ICT, in most cases, ICT in most organizations, there is taken as an expenditure. Every time they spend on ICT is even accounted in the expenses. But first we have to change that mindset. Recognize that ICT is an investment. Maybe it may not come as a it may not come into bringing in, in some cases it does bring in revenues, but in some cases it does cut down costs. In any way, it's a profitable investment. So to us, as long as it is profitable, we can sit down. We do try to invest in the government priority projects. So if it can bring in yield to members' fund, then we are welcome they are welcome for the discussions. And as a researcher, I would say, first, I prefer to use productivity part. Like for all of us, we all have 24 hours of our time, but how do we use those 24 hours? That's the question. And not everybody in this room can afford personal secretary to remind them this time for what and this time for what. So I use the same policy, for example, from this primary school time when we use timetable, but now I use my own calendar, with digital calendar again. The calendar that I can have anywhere I am, and I can edit it accordingly. And then there are other collaborative tools that we use in terms of as a researcher. Like right now we do use Microsoft or Google Docs. We can collaborate from a distance. I don't have, my core researcher doesn't have to be in the same room as I am, and we can still do our research. On another part that we are still, for SUSA to say, or for Zanzibar, this is still an issue when it comes to, for researchers to access online materials. Our libraries are not digitalized enough yet. So I hope, I've seen the Principal Secretary of Education was here in the morning. I think if he's still here, he can help us with that. But on another side, with research from SUSA per se, this one from Kiswahili, that's the Kiluki, and ICT, Computer Science Department. I think from last year, they have been doing a research on how to accommodate Kiswahili into AI. Because if we do not put Kiswahili in the digitalization, the gap will always be there. How do you ask Google Translate to translate Kiswahili into English? The AI itself needs to understand Kiswahili first. So that's one of the research that is being done in SUSA, and it's among the projects that it even involves undergraduate students actually. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a quick comment. And a colleague from Betia here. I remember in Tanzania mainland when digital, transformation started and all this talking. Central bank was a crucial, or had a crucial part to play within the government institution in terms of mindset. Why? Because it was pioneered of paperless on many different transactions, and looking, Zanzibar, ZSSF is well positioned to be a kind of a pioneered, leading a frontier of this initiative to make sure everything in your organization will be automated because of the small numbers you have and the resources you have. So hopefully, going forward, you will take that challenge and be able to show other government institutions that this is possible. But about university, I'll just have a follow-up question. I think you try to be as much political correct as possible one can be. But do you think human capital has been discussed a lot? And of course, you can talk about training, but what are the qualities of those trainers? Do you think, in terms of a university, that required competencies there to train students to be at the level of digital transformation that we are envisioning in strategy, or significant investment is required to the staff themselves and not the youth? Thank you.
Okay. First, I need to acknowledge that as we are dealing with students, I think they are better off in terms of digitalization than us. We just need to be open-minded. As I think that the chief guest said it, or Dr. Nicholas, that they need opportunity. That's what they need. They need to be given an opportunity. And currently, I could say we are not there yet. We have not given them the opportunity that they deserve to have. Because, for example, I would say, of course, in every faculty right now there is an ICT, but they learn very basic. For me, I would want to see that programming language becomes like any other language that students have to learn, even from primary or secondary school, not just universities, because that is what they're going to need. Or robotics, the studies of robotics. But now this robotic education is only available for private schools. As again, we will have a development whereby most of Zanzibaris will just be seeing Zanzibar flying, but they're not part of it. If we do not accommodate all this and make it inclusive from lower levels. Even typing, as kids are being taught to write, they should also be taught to type. Because we are digitalizing, for example, the health system. It takes longer now to go to the doctor because the doctor has to type everything. But when when they write, it's faster. But why we don't have the skills yet? And at the university, maybe we don't have as much skills as what our children need to learn, but we need to be open-minded. We need to be open to give them opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Dr. P.
Yes, I wanted to chip in because, you know, when we talk about PPP, most people think they're big projects of $100 million, $250 million. But in a developed world, you will have what we call community-based PPP. And in the community-based PPP, sometimes universities, hospitals, we can develop community kind of like projects. Now, why do we call these community kind of projects is that sometimes you may find, for example, universities such as our university, SUSA, can team up with, let's say, NVIDIA, the company that makes chips, or any artificial intelligence kind of a company, and design what we call a digital hub. And I would like to congratulate, I think threefold, they are working with SUSA in terms of trying to bring those, trying to transfer the skills to some of our students here in Zanzibar, because basically the private entity, they come, apart from coming with the capital, they also come with experience as well. Now, that is something which is very rare. It's like a diamond. And when we work together with universities, you see, the younger generation, they are quite forward-thinking. They think with a lot of ideas. They come up with a lot of dimensions in which eventually the private entity may use it for business purposes. So if we develop that kind of arrangement, that kind of partnership, and then eventually we can transfer the knowledge and skills to our people, which eventually they will be able to be engaged or be included in the digital transformation. That is something I wanted to share.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. Commissioner, I left you last for a purpose because you are the planner. You plan everything, and so you had a lot of very useful insights. So first, my first question, what's on your side, what's the plan to make sure that this strategy is effectively implemented, because without the national planning, because it is multi-sectoral, so otherwise it will just be an organized chaos. So just tell us something in brief, key issues or things that you're thinking that you pursue to make sure that the plan is effectively implemented. That's first. Second is the issue of formalization. The digital this strategy to be effectively, again, to be implemented, there's a need to improve formalization of business for various obvious reasons, for social reason, economic reason, and formalization of individuals. So one key issue could be unique identification, because, so in that area, Zanzibar Planning Commission also, what plan does it have to improve formalization of represent the people. So thank you.
Okay. First of all, just to express the role of the Planning Commission, which actually deal with the kind of coordination among the government agencies, including the IGA and other government entities. And its role is both in planning, sectoral developments, including issues of ICT and everything, but also the Commission is dealing also with the human resource planning. We also deal with the issue of monitoring and evaluation of the government programs and projects. So in that case then, every year, the government, and that is the strategies which include all the government strategies, government plans and programs which are going to be undertaken every year. So we have a kind of identification of the proper, of the right or strategic project in a particular period of year to be implemented. And we go through the sectors to collect all those programs and projects that are going to be implemented and put in the priority plan, priority list of the implementation. So for the IGA, currently is one of the strategic projects that we are going to, and we included in the government plan and financial year for the year 23-24. And among the areas that are going to be improved is including digital infrastructures. Because as you know, even in a vast areas of the digitalizations, we include a kind of digital economy. And under the digital economy, we need first to have a kind of policy, guideline, and regulations. So after having the digital policies, we need to have a kind of strategy like the one we have in the IGA already now, and then the IGA is going to translate the strategy into small annual implementation plan, which will be implemented by various agencies. And one of the important aspects that we need also to include is to sharing a kind of responsibilities in the implementation of the strategies, activities in these strategies. Because each and every activity identified in the plan, in the strategies, need to have a kind of implementation time, framework, time limits, and stakeholders assigned particularly to implement that particular activities. And that are going to be done in coordination with the government agencies. Because not only, for example, activities under digital economic are going to be implemented by various sectors. There are a blue economy in it. We have a green and agriculture and everything. We have other areas, other sectors we are going to be going to implement the digital economy. So as a planning commission, our role is to coordinate the strategies in collaboration with the IGAs to make sure that all sectors of the economy are implementing the strategies in a communicable way. Because currently, it seems like the government is working. Somebody mentioned here this morning that the government is working in isolation. It's working in isolation because they don't have a kind of communication strategy. They don't use actually the digitals to communicate. Until now, the government is working mainly on papers. And this actually is delaying some of the implementation of the programs and plan. So I think that some of the strategies or programs that we are going to implement to make sure that the digitalization strategies is effectively implemented with the MDAs, including the private sectors, which will be accommodated under the PPP's programs.
Thank you. But I mean about the unique identification, do you have any plan for that? Because that will be helpful for many ministries to be able to perform their mandate more effectively. So in the national planning, is there any plan that will, yes, to ensure that people will be uniquely identified or not?
Especially the rural peoples, you mean?
Yes, but they are the one typically left behind. But yes, everyone, yes, Zanzibari can be identified, you know, based on certain agreed ID.
Yeah, the identification of the peoples, our participation of the people are going to be implemented, are going to be done through the sectors. And the sectors actually are the one who identify the stakeholders, they identify the needs for that particular sectors. Then they coordinate the sectors to bring to our national plan stream in order to be financed and implemented annually. So these actually are done through the MDAs.
Yeah, that's interesting, but then we'll hear the question. But I think, like you said, that's one thing for government to consider. It will make sense to come from the planning and the way down, but of course there are multiple ways of looking and doing things. But the last question, we hear and we see every day there's a lot of dialogue between policymakers and DPs and very private investors. But my concern is the engagement with the community, you know, the people, especially from village, and of course even across the neighborhood, because what's your plan? I mean, as the ZPC, the Planning Commission, to ensure that the awareness about digital strategy reach majority of people, because otherwise we will meet again, talk with the same people, have the same dialogue, but the mass proportion of population are not aware of this initiative. So what plan, if you don't have, or that you will try to have, to ensure that it's reached majority of people, the strategy? Thank you.
Yeah, first just to put the point of information that even the economy that we are building now, we call it kind of inclusive, we are emphasis on inclusive growth. And inclusive growth is a concept that will include everyone in the building of the economy of the nation. So we are planning to have everybody on board, including the rural people, the communities. And these are going to be implemented through the sectors. For example, our fellow, the Minister of Education, they have technology centers in the rural areas. We have also from the IGAs, they have the centers at the rural areas to implement number of programs that will include rural people. Currently, we have a plan with the Ministry of Tourism to establish a database, tourism database, that will involve all the rural peoples, all the investors in the rural areas especially, who coordinate the information flow and sharing with the Planning Commission so that they can collect all the information, they can monitor some of the tourism activities undergoing the community and the rural area so that they can also publicize the events, publicize the performance of the economies and projects in the country.
Thank you, thank you. Great to hear that you have that in plan to ensure that the community will hear about this strategy and not just hear, or also crucially to understand it. I will give it to the floor, just for, you know, if you have told the time is up, but before I conclude, thank you very much, but I would like to give Dr. Slim just 1 or 2 minutes to sum up this discussion. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for giving me this privilege. I must admit, I said earlier that we are a government entity that have a lot of workforces. We are dealing with public direct, and our needs are always like demand, right? And we have established insurance system for the ministry to able to enhance our service delivery to our people. That too has been enabled because of the digitalization, because without that we couldn't even to set it up. But we also have large sort of staff database that we need to know who is where, doing what, when is he retiring, And when we need to replace, all this need to be done at the test point if we are to proceed properly. So we have achieved a lot as ministry, and we definitely know the only way to enhance our service delivery to the community is through manageable digital solution. So for those gaps that we don't have, we appreciate our partner to continue to support us in order to achieve government vision and in alignment with eGov strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone, and over to you, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you to the panelists who were here with us, and that was very interesting and very enlightening. Without further ado, because we're really running out of time, I would just like to announce that for the next session, it's going to be under 1 hour, so let's keep mindful of the time so that all the panelists will have time to introduce their presentation. Thank you. Nicholas, to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for our first panel of esteemed colleagues, really insightful, and also to Dr. Twahir for his very cutting questions. I don't think the panelists were ready for such difficult questions. Thank you for that. You teased out some real knowledge. So we have our second panel, which will be private sector members. Private sector members, can you please take the stage now, and Frank as well. Okay, now we have our second panel, which is with private sector members. Our moderator for this panel, we're very fortunate, is my colleague on the Advisory Council for the Digital Economic Transformation. His name is Frank Mola. Frank Mola is the Managing Director and Head of Sub-Saharan Africa at BPC Switzerland. Before BPC, he worked at MasterCard, American Express, and Absa Banks. So he has a deep history with the financial and fintech industry. He has over 2 decades of experience in financial services, payments, technology, banking, and fintech in Europe, UK, Middle East, and Africa. He sits in several boards, including as lead advisor to the e-Government Agency of Zanzibar on the digital economic strategy, and he is a Harvard University graduate. Frank, thank you very much, and please introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Nick. You pretty much told almost life story in there. Good afternoon. Habari ya mchana ama jioni ama which one is it? Mchana. Good. So thank you very much. Really excited to be here. So I have an amazing panel with me in front of me, private sector. I will quickly give each of you the mic. Introduce yourself, where you're from, some of the nice things you've seen today or some of the nice stories you've had since morning, but also just tell us more about your company and if there's any commitments that the minister made this morning that you feel like you want to make today in terms of support, engagement, and working with the eGov of Zanzibar. Please, this is a chance for you to do so. So I'll give at least each of you let's say 3 to 5 minutes to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Should I go? Okay. Assalamu alaikum. It's so nice to say that actually. Most of the time I don't say that. But thank you very much. I think my name is Shehryar Ali. I am the country manager for MasterCard covering East Africa. And I cover countries south of Egypt all the way down to Mauritius. And this is my first trip to Zanzibar, so I'm really delighted and honored by the lovely people, the culture, the vibe. So I really am enjoying it. Thank you very much. Yeah, a big round of applause to you. Yeah, absolutely. And working for MasterCard, you know, I landed at the airport and I went to get a taxi, and Mr. Frank was luckily there, so he saw this happen. I wanted to pay by my MasterCard, and I was told no. Go to the ATM machine to take out cash. So that was a painful realization as to where digitalization, even for tourists or incoming business people, where it stands today. Nevertheless, it's far better than some of the other countries we have, encountered. And of course, we expect the acceleration to be really fast, because we're lucky today that this is the inaugural session of this platform, which will, inshallah, become the status quo going forward every year. I really hope so that we can track every year the progress that we are all committing to. How many of you think MasterCard is a card company? Raise your hands. Come on, the lunch was 2 hours ago. Yeah? Okay, so MasterCard is a technology company, and we provide solutions to real life pain points in terms of, yes, payments, but then beyond payments, we work with governments, we work with fintechs, banks, telcos, and merchants to see how we can solve for issues that they face, inefficiencies, and some of that we'll talk about during the course of this discussion. I think the commitment, Frank, to your very straight question, is that post listening to the Honorable Minister, Elsie, if you can just stand. Elsie, I'd like to introduce Elsie, is our country manager for Tanzania. A big round of applause for Elsie. Yes, and of course we have Namalisa over there, who heads the government vertical for MasterCard. And we were discussing, and we took an executive decision that we will hire in Tanzania and open our office in Tanzania. That's a decision that we are passing back to our management and our team. So a big round of applause to the team who will be executing this. You have my sanction, it's recorded on media, so there's no going back, yeah? All right, so that is one commitment that we are proud of bringing to the table, but this is just the beginning. Tomorrow we have a very important day where we are going to be signing a few commitments. I will not steal your thunder, Namalisa, but please keep an eye out for us. We believe in localizing ourselves. We're going to localize ourselves. We don't believe that using a European model or a American model and bringing it in here will work. It just doesn't happen like that. So we are very conscious of that. We are very humble. We believe we have to customize and curate for the needs of Zanzibar and Tanzania. So with that, I'll stop and pass the mic.
Hello, guten Tag. I'm Niklas from Germany. Really great to be here. I'm a venture capitalist. Who here has met a venture capitalist before? A couple of hands, good. I don't live in Germany. I don't live in Silicon Valley. I spent most of my time in Central America. I have an apartment on an island called Roatan. That's part of the country of Honduras. And I'm interested in that place because they have a very interesting, very deep, and very innovative special economic zone program. And I'm investing in startups and help them utilize special economic zones. So this is why I'm here in Zanzibar, because I was very attracted to the ideas by the government in terms of special economic zones. I've been organizing a conference together with friends, Christoph from Threefold, Our World, and from Fumba Town with the Charter Cities Institute. And I've been really, really amazed by the potential here for special economic zones. We had 60 people come to the conference, people from Dar es Salaam, from Zanzibar, from Nairobi, many of them. We had a pitch competition with 18 startups that were coming. I think Zanzibar is in a tremendously good location, right? So you have Dar es Salaam very close, you have Nairobi very close, Kigali, and you have a young and hungry population here on the island that wants to succeed. And I'm planning and hoping to be a part of that too in the future. And I would love to offer my advice and recommendations when it comes to doing special economic zones right. Two of which would be, and we can discuss that later, stability, right, long-term investment stability, and the other is a degree of legal autonomy. And I'll talk more about that later. My pledge or my commitment is, what I would hope to do, I made the first ever VC investment in a startup in Honduras. The first ever. I want to make the first ever VC investment in a startup from Zanzibar. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see from Sheria when he started talking, MasterCard has already made a commitment. They're going to open an office in Tanzania. I don't know if it's going to be in Zanzibar or Dar. And it's Zanzibar. And Elsie, who's the country director, has been told to make sure she hires a local person. This aligns to what the minister was saying in the morning. So please, a big round of applause. And of course, just getting to hear from you saying it's going to be the first investment you're also doing in Zanzibar. Mr. Said, are you listening to this? Where is Said? EGAV MD. I mean, this is really, really exciting news that we are hearing here. So thank you very much. Silas, the bar has been set a bit high, right? Yeah. So looking forward to your story as well.
No worries. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. So my name is Silas. Actually coming from Exim Bank, Tanzania. I'm looking after alternative channel and digital transformation. So my work actually is just a digital economy. So bringing people not to go to a brick and mortar branches to do a self-service financial services. So whatsoever that need to deal with somebody doing the banking services on their palm, benki kiganjani mwako. That is what we want. We don't want people to go to the branches just to have the service where they are, anywhere, anytime. That is what my main role at Exim Bank. So I'm glad to be here. It's a great honor to be here. And I think one of the commitments that we are making is just we'll support these initiatives because that is what we want as a bank to be. Financial inclusion, people to access bank anywhere, anytime, at any time. And I think from the morning opening remarks from the minister, he just mentioned a very crucial point. We have some 2 branches here in Zanzibar, which mainly are situated in town center. He mentioned the multi-million investment that have been done in Shamba. And really, it clicks on our head. We haven't made any commitment of putting a branch there. But I think after a chit chat that we had, I have my colleague Giz here, Mr. Andrew Limo, head of retail banking. I have my colleague Giz, Mr. Shrikant, who is the head of CIB. We said we have to do something in Shamba. And before close of this year, we'll put a branch there. Not only the branch, but also we'll put agents banking agents around there. This will speak to the people who are living nearby, because there can be an agent. That will speak to the economy, but also service to those people around, which also it will bring to the digital awareness, educations on how to use the things. So it's pretty much speak to what the strategy says, and we are hoping that this will be in line to what is being expected from EGAS and the government in general. So that's a brief introduction to me. I should stop here, but I think all the 5 pillars that have been mentioned, in somewhere, somehow, the bank have a role to play, and we are eager to do that. Thank you, and it's been an honor to be one of the members of the panel today. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, yani, jamani, naomba mwapigie makofi. Yani, you know, it's from here moving on, it's just investments, commitments, na lazima tutafuatilia mpaka mwisho. Ili tuhakikishe kuwa tumeona hizi miradi zimefanywa na zikazinduliwa kabisa. I wish the minister was here, right? Because this is really exciting. I mean, Silas, just listening to you, you already have 2 branches. You want to do 1 more, and it aligns with what the minister was saying. It aligns with capacity building, promoting the locals, making sure that, you know, I'm sure training things and all that is going to be incorporated in that. So, asante sana. My friend, Christoph, let's hear from you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christoph, and I came to your island, my island now as well, I may say, about 1.5 years ago, and I fell in love with this beautiful place. and I met wonderful people from this government. And maybe first a word about myself. I'm a tech entrepreneur, coding since I'm very young, and I had some startups. And most of the work I did was in Europe and the US, but I'm also about 30 years in Egypt and Dubai. And when I came here, it was to talk with the government and to see how can I help bring something here. I didn't expect to fall in love, of course, so fast, but we did. So we moved with our organization, with our family. We're living very close by, actually. And we're here now with our team to do 3 things. One is to try and help here to bring more internet inside the country, inside Zanzibar. Because right now we have a long cable to the internet, but we don't have a lot of internet capacity or internet applications in the country. And I think this is something where we can help with, and we are delighted to work together with Ziktia and with other members of the government to work with students, to work with local companies, to try and help them with technology to have more here in Zanzibar. The second thing we want to do is actually very close, also my friend Niklas is talking about, is that maybe we can help with incubation, startups, young people who want to create something new. We have a lot of experience around that we're now here. We live now here with our teams. So we would like to help them finding funding, help them with technology, help them with advice. This is something we really like to do. And the third thing, which has been announced very recently, but soon more, is that we're working on a digital free zone. It's a new, I think, very exciting thing which is going to happen. Because when we talked with our friends from the government, we said, look, we can bring 1 million people to the island physically, but we can bring 1 million people to the island digitally. And why not become a sort of digital center for Africa and bring a lot of wealth here in Zanzibar for the rest around and be an example of what can be built in a digital free zone. And this is something we are going to work on together, hopefully with all of you, and we're very much looking forward to that.
Services, industry, and agri, that you have to limit yourself to those 4. You can start new industries by actually coming up with new ideas. My friend over here is actually looking for those new ideas, incubation of those new ideas that could actually disseminate from here. We talked about Singapore, we talked about Hong Kong, we talked about Dubai. I mean, we're talking about places where new industries and diversification of industry took place like really quick. So from aiming high, we should definitely aim high. And last week I was inspired by this girl I met. She is from Kenya, from the slums of Nyenga. She was actually, from a very unprivileged, let's say, background. And she was on her way to attend Harvard on the 24th of August. And she had the determination that she could actually, she was one of 8 siblings. And what I found, why I'm mentioning her in this story is because all it took for her was belief in herself, a vision that she had of herself, that she could change herself, her family's life, the people around her, make Kenya proud. And I saw that light in her eye that she's going there to Harvard and she's going to really change her own life and her family's life. And it was a really amazing experience. So I feel like there are many of you thinking today in terms of your next generation, they're thinking about what's possible. Well, everything is possible, firstly. Now, let's come down to MasterCard quickly, because otherwise I'll keep talking for too long. If we talk about, how many of you are small or medium-sized businesses? Raise your hand if you run a small or medium-sized business. All right, great. So let's say MasterCard today has a program called Jazaduka. This Jazaduka program was curated with Kenya Commercial Bank and Unilever, whereby what we did was we said, let's digitize the supply chain, whereby previously a small duka, if you've got a shop or you've got a business interest, which is actually purchasing its stock in cash, cash is limiting, right? Cash is not that, it doesn't create data points for you to get credit. It's a bit clunky. You have to have safety around managing cash and transportation and storage and all of that good stuff. Now, if you were to digitalize that, and that's exactly what we did with Jazaduka, suddenly data points started coming in this model, and bank, which was KCB, started underwriting those small dukas for limits so that they don't have to use cash. They could actually use credit to replenish their store, yeah, and grow their business. Now, in the middle of all of this, COVID happened, so it's not like the credit cycles go perfectly as you like them, right? The credits take a hit and then it comes back up. But nevertheless, the resilience has led to 20,000 shops today benefiting from that credit line in Kenya. That's exactly what we're bringing here in Tanzania. And we would hope that the SMEs, which form the backbone of Zanzibar's economy, you do benefit from that. But this requires, again, PPP, partnerships from various key stakeholders. So we all have to work together for that. So do reach out if you have such a model in mind, or you have this pain point. Last thing that I want to highlight is, how many of you could have thought that MasterCard will be into agriculture? Raise your hand if you heard about MasterCard being in agriculture. Probably not. So, Andrew knew. Thank you, Andrew. I have hope. So what happens is that we've got a program called Farm Pass. Now, what is a farmer's pain point? Access to good inputs, quality inputs, let's say seeds, fertilizer, etc. Can it be easily accessible? Secondly, once the product is ready or produce is ready, do I have access to a marketplace where I can sell and get the best price possible, right? So we have a product called Farm Pass. That Farm Pass solution, which we're working with in Tanzania with DMA, it's available on Google. You can read it, where we've got hundreds of thousands of farmers actually benefiting from this particular solution. It digitizes for you to order your seeds on your feature phone. Yeah, you can order your seeds. The seeds get delivered to you. You have an agent who helps you get you access to the marketplace to get the best price for your produce. And this is all creating digital data points again, so that you go to your bank, you don't have to go and tell them a story that I had so much cash and this is my cash flow and this is my cash turnover. You actually have a report, a digital report from the bank saying that this is your flow, therefore you can be underwritten for a loan or a credit facility. So that's a solution that is really catching a lot of attention. It's spreading within Tanzania, and I believe that that can be another sector that we should focus on to diversify. Sky is the limit, I mean, for example, we were in Ethiopia last week. Last example, I'll stop because there's just too much happening in the MasterCard world. We went to, their mining sector. Now their mining sector, just like here you have spices, they have gems, right? So the distance between mine to market is a long distance. There's pilferage happens, leakages happens, there is all kinds of lethargy in that process, where you take a gem and then you sell it abroad. There are many agents in the middle. So a very cutting edge CEO who reports into to the Prime Minister, she came in and she said, I want my mine to market distance to be really minimized. So just last week we were in Addis and we launched that e-marketplace for gems in Ethiopia. And now the website is live. You can go to ethiopiaminerals.com and they're selling that directly to the international markets, all these gems that previously did not have access. So similarly, if the spices, the cardamom, the cloves, any other specific industry or in the agri space or otherwise, we, with our payment gateway, can enable you to have direct access to the marketplace. Now, last thing that is important is we talk about all this fancy stuff, but what's in it for Zanzibar? If foreign currency dependency is on tourism alone and you want to diversify, then opening your markets to the world through these gateways is absolutely essential. you will get FCY coming in from additional channels, right? So with these 3 or 4, I think, agriculture, again, industry development, gateway utilization for flow capture, I think there will be a good set of diversification in Zanzibar that we can all be proud of years down. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sharia. I mean, as we pass the mic over to Nicholas, it's really, really exciting. Separate from tourism, I mean, MasterCard, you said in agriculture, you're doing some ecosystem plays on, Jazaduka and all that stuff. So again, for Zanzibari, guys, the opportunity is here. And like I heard, you gave a commitment, you're opening an office with a local resource. We really want to see all those things coming in. We really want to see, we need to set timelines so that we follow through some of these commitments. Elsie, I'm seeing you there. We would want to know by when are you going to activate these things, because stories have to be told, but we also have to actualize them, right? So thank you very much, Sharia. Over to you, Nicholas. Tell us, I mean, what is it, how do you see Zanzibar from that lens going outside? Just separate, people know Zanzibar for tourism and all. And I'm really happy with your introduction already. I can already foretell some of the exciting things that you want to share with us.
Sure. So what I'm interested in and what I heard a commitment from the government is to bring digital innovation or innovation in general. I think that's a good idea. I think that's how countries like Singapore succeeded, like Estonia, like Uruguay, like Dubai. There's all important lessons to be learned from these places that you can replicate. For example, special economic zones, and kind of giving different actors the chance to try different legal frameworks rather than you coming with one big one that applies everywhere. Just try out different things. The other is investment stability. That makes all the difference, right? So if you have not sure about stability, like a little bit, then it's very hard to get 25 million to be invested. If you have very high stability, then it's no problem to get 25 billion, right? So that makes a massive difference, right? So you need to be committed to investment stability. And let me say one thing about innovation and about the potential for this to become a startup hub. I think it has all the potential. I think it has a fantastic location, as I mentioned before. It's a perfect location to be a technology hub in Africa, right? So, Nairobi, Kenya has lots of startups, but they told me the city is kind of stressful to live in. And they were like, oh, we're going to Zanzibar. It's so beautiful. It's a much better way of life and quality of life. So there's a huge potential for Zanzibar to be a hub for startups and then develop its own people. And how do you do that? What I can say is, and I'm investing in multiple different industries, in biotechnologies, in aviation, in robotics, in drones, in blockchain, and I can't tell you which of those is good for you. None of us knows, right? Innovation you get through a mentality, through an attitude, and that's very important. And I want to quote someone, her name is Jessica Livingston. She's the founder of, one of the founders of Y Combinator, the most successful startup accelerator in human history. Basically the cultural epicenter of Silicon Valley. They have funded and accelerated 4,000 startups that created trillions in value. And she said this one thing, and that's within her own country, right? Oh, the United States, Silicon Valley is innovative. She says, no, people like innovation in the abstract. Right? Everyone's like, yeah, we like innovation. But once you present them with a specific innovation, like what's the new thing that you're doing, they reject it. Why? Because they don't know it. And what you don't know, you don't trust. That's why everyone says they like innovation, but they don't recognize it when they see it. So, and that's very important, because these individuals that are innovative, they think differently. They come with something you don't expect and you don't know, and you won't trust them. They're weird. And they're typically also very strong-willed, right? Because they have to tell the story all the time. I'm doing this weird thing that nobody understands or knows, and then people always come, oh, isn't that dangerous? Couldn't that change things? So these people have to be very, very strong-willed, right? So the important thing is to trust in the process. Trust in the process to let them free, right? They're not attracted to like a government program or another lab or something like that, or giving them money or whatever. Like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, they didn't ask for that. Right? They're like, I have my own ideas, get out of my way. That's when you get the good stuff, right? If you allow these strong-willed people to thrive, if you trust in the process. You need to have a rule of law. If they do something wrong, if they commit a crime, they need to be punished. But the crime shouldn't be that they didn't follow rule book page 400 something, paragraph, whatever. Those aren't good rules, right? So remove the barriers, remove rules, right? So give people the chance, ask them, what are your barriers? Oh, it's hard to get a bank account, right? Oh, it's hard to set up a business, right? It's hard to register it, right? How do we solve that? Christoph, that's what they're doing with the Digital Free Zone. Oh, I don't have access to. So you just ask them the question, then see what you can do to remove these barriers. That's the important thing. If you get this right, you can be whatever you want to. You can be better than Singapore. You can be better than Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley right now is forgetting that lesson, right? In the United States right now, things are harder to build in many areas, right? So that's the chance for places like Zanzibar to say, how can we do it better? And I think that starts with that attitude, with a culture around innovation and letting young people thrive, even if you don't know what they're doing and if it sounds weird to you or don't initially trust it. Trust in the process, let them thrive.
Wow, amazing. I think what I've picked so far from two of you is, Africa, number one, is not a monolithic continent. If you look at Africa, the cultures, the dynamics, technology, digital appetite is extremely different. Both of you have given examples of some things happening elsewhere, but I could keenly hear that when you come to Zanzibar or any other country, you must appreciate that the nuances are different. The digital appetite is different, the culture is different, and we must localize anything that you want to do in this market. So really, really exciting as you pass the mic to Silas, and keeping in mind that, if you think about technology, if you think about any country, you have to localize technology. Yani huwezi kwenda nchi fulani umejifunza mambo mengine nje, then you want to copy the same thing and copy paste in Zanzibar or a different country. Yani haiwezi kufanyika kabisa. So what I like about what they're saying is the fact that wanajua kabisa Singapore imetoka mbali, ama ni Kenya, ama ni sehemu hizo zote wametaja, lakini wamekuja Zanzibar, they also know that some of them might not apply, na ni lazima watatafuta teknolojia ama mienendo zile zitafaa watu wa Zanzibar. So Silas, over to you. I mean, what are your thoughts around this conversation?
Sure. I think you have limited us from, or refraining us to speak about the technology and the tourism. But if you had the gentleman say, all it end up to the technology. So there is no way we can skip the technology or we can omit the technology or whatsoever sectors that we probably say here. So I think at the end of the day, even this strategy is people-centered strategy. So if you ask me what's the other sectors that we probably think can help or is something that it have the potential. Number one, I can say is agriculture, because I know that's a place where most of the people they're involved. So on agriculture, look on agriculture production, not subsistence agriculture. Let's speak about the exported based agriculture production. So that's a thing I think if we have the right policy frameworks in terms of enabling the farmers to move from subsistence agriculture to export based agriculture is something that's is probably a new area, but you can't omit the technology. The technology will come in to actually promote the agriculture. Speaking of the agriculture inputs, the way how we distribute and everything, that's where the technology comes in and actually give them a benefit out of the technology. How the credit score can be done to the local farmers. That is where we think technologies come in. So agriculture is one sector. If we really probably put more effort on exported based agriculture, is something to look at. But if you speak about agriculture, you have to speak about industrialization and trade. Then you need to process here. You need to send not a raw, products. You have to send a processed product to outside. So that's, I think, is cross-cutting issue. Sky is the limit, as Ali says. Whatsoever is on the table can be explored. Oil and gas, I know that there are some exploration that says there is probably a petrol reserve in Zanzibar. Explore that. Make sure that you're not following a mineral cost that the other country have followed. Make sure that the policy is right. Make sure the frameworks are right. Regulatory issues that promote exploration is intact. So blue economy, speak about fisheries, how we have a lot of, extended deep sea area. How do we use that? How do we promote that? What sort of frameworks are there to look at? So I think, second what Ali says, sky is the limit. Not limit ourselves, but I think let's see what many people actually engage to. So that should be our thinking around the new sectors that we should be our priority areas. Thanks.
Thank you, Silas. And definitely you said Exim Bank already has 2 branches here. You're looking at opening the 3rd one. And some of these areas, like I always say, technology is an enabler. The future of payment is in the hands of the consumers. And like you hear most of the speakers are speaking, anything you develop, you have to put the consumer ahead. They're the ones dictating the future and where everything is moving. So if you try to innovate in absence of the consumer, then you might just end up with a white elephant project. So asante sana, Silas, and we're really looking forward to some of those things, agriculture, the things you talk about, innovation. Your centers here in Zanzibar, the one you're opening, cater for the Zanzibarians, for them to feel the benefit. And when you come back here, we want to hear those nice stories of how it's impacting life in Zanzibar. Prof, over to you, and as you take us through now, your comments, what you think around Zanzibar separate from technology, and tourism, and what's really happening, how we can expose Zanzibar out there. Also tell us, what are some of the legal, policies, frameworks that you think should be done to enable these things to work? So then we'll come back like this with Silas, and then finish with Cherry.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the internet and then go back forward here to understand it to you guys. So who is using the internet every day? This is a check to see if we're still all together here. Right? We all use the internet. Now when I came here, I was talking to some of our friends and I said, look, we don't have internet here. And then people use their phone and they say, no, I have internet, look, it's my phone. I said, no, you have your phone, it's applications on your phone. And then you have a very long cable going to the internet. But we don't have an internet here. If, as an example, you use a video application to talk, like Zoom, do you know if two of you here talk to each other over Zoom, you're first going to Europe. There you're being connected. And then you come back. Internet here is much more expensive than in other countries. It's very expensive. And we're wasting that expensive internet bandwidth to go to a place out of the country, to go to Europe and come back. That shouldn't be the case, no? We need to have our own internet here. And internet is not just the cable. The cable is just something you need so you can communicate. But we need to have our data. And I heard already some people talking about it. We need these applications in Swahili. We need AI in Swahili. We need local information. Most of the information consumed is not even from here. How do you know the information you consume is authentic? Today on the internet, it's a big question mark. Where is the information coming from? How authentic is it? So I invite you to think together with us and say, look, how can we together with our youth, with the universities, with the government, of course, how can we create a local internet so your data is here? The information you look at is authentic. You know that it has more chances to be true. And people are not lying in front of you because it happens all the time. So it's super important to have a local internet. And let me give you one concrete example. This is an island with a lot of tourism. People using Airbnb, Uber, all of these sites are from out of the country. We're losing more than $100 million per year of not having these applications in the country. So we have to create our own. So what do we need to do to get that? Yes, there is the infrastructure part and people are working on that, private sector, government, things are happening there. And it's amazing to see actually how active the government is in making that happen and how committed. Yes, that needs to happen. But it also needs a change of mentality a little bit, which means that people being in school here need to be more proud on their own country and their own knowledge. It's not because it comes from outside that it's better. They need to feel that they can make a difference themselves. And we need to make it playful. It needs to be fun to learn these new technologies, to play with it, to create your own metaverse, to create your own AI, and put it from out of the culture. And this has to do with bringing back pride in basically building out our own digital future. So I'm very much looking forward to be part of that, because I was lucky already once, like 30 plus years ago, in being there when the internet came. But for Africa, we can leapfrog. We can be the first in bringing an internet back to wherever it needs to be. An internet built by Africa, for Africa, with the youth of Africa. Okay, to make that happen, of course, we need the help from the government. Regulations by itself are not necessarily the solution, because often they're used to maybe coming out of fear. Like we need to regulate something, but often then they will just slow down the innovation you want. And that can be damaging. It's more about enabling people to be more successful. Making sure that, as an example, around money, rather than being so scared that we ban digital currencies, no, we should endorse them but in a safe way, in a regulated way, and make it easier for people to get started. So, rather than regulations, which are needed, don't get me wrong, we need to do things so people realize it's important to have certain changes, like have the data local, make it easy for people, make it more convenient for people, make people more collaborating with each other between the private sector and the government, rather than having 200 systems, right? We believe personally that people need to be in the center of their own digital life. It's all about bringing it back to us. And e-health, medication, all of these things, it's about us. It's not about an American or a Chinese company. We need to be the center of our own digital life. And for that, of course, we can use support from the government to make us powerful as a human being in our own digital future and bring that here. And Zanzibar could well be the example, the first example from out of which we build a digital future for all of us.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's really exciting listening to these stories. We have around 13 minutes, and I wanted each of you to talk about, regulation policies, 2 minutes each. If we can have at least maybe another 5 or so minutes in case anybody has questions, so that, we can be able to. But Silas, just 2 minutes around regulation and policy. How do you think the government, you can work closely with the government to be able to unlock them? Thank you.
Thank you. Very quick question. I'm not much more on the police and regulatory frameworks, but I think the key point is the element that will be creating those policies and frameworks. So to me, the elements, the lack of involvement, engagement of stakeholders should be key when creating these policies and frameworks. The framework should speak about the capacity building, should speak about the research that should be done probably, and actually create environment that fosters that things to happen. Rather than the policy or whatsoever guidance directive that will come, and it will come as a directive that comes from one side, and some people have to kind of like follow that. So the engagement is really crucial on whatsoever that will be developed as a framework or as a regulatory rules, engagement to the key stakeholders. So at least the inputs from these key stakeholders are considered. Capacity building is a process. People say this is a process, structured process. So we should know that it should not be over the night things will happen. So whatsoever the framework that is being in place should consider that. That's coming in now, the research of the things, how people are backed up in terms of whatsoever they are doing. If you speak of agriculture, there are agriculture inputs, machineries. How do the government support, or how do the private sector come in and support that? So that involvement can clearly bring the picture of how the framework should be. So that's my input on it.
Thank you very much. How do you see the government?
Sure. So there's two models for regulation: decentralized way, the decentralized way. Centralized way is what most people think regulations are. Oh, we have to get the policy right for the whole country. That is actually an almost guaranteed way to not do it right. The decentralized way is better, and very few people know about this, that China was doing policy in a decentralized way, not in a centralized way. You think, oh, Communist Party, no, they use special economic zones. They were looking at Hong Kong, which was a special administrative region that imported British common law, and they said, how did they do that? It's like, okay, they're trying out a different set of laws. They're using common law. How can we do that? We can't reform the entire country. That's too hard. There's too many interests. It's a country of hundreds of millions of people. So we give Shenzhen local autonomy to do their own laws, right? And see what happens. Shenzhen is now the hardware manufacturing hub in the world. It started as a special economic zone. China saw that success and then created thousands of special economic zones. Similar success story in Dubai, similar success story now in Uruguay, and there's now tens of thousands of special economic zones around the world. And the reason is simple, right? Zanzibar has autonomy from Tanzania, right? To some degree. Why is that good? Because you know better what you need here, right? So the more you decentralize it, the more you give people the autonomy to create their own rules, the more they can make these rules so they meet local demand. So I'd recommend this, don't try to get everything right. Create special economic zones so you can decentralize rulemaking, right? So people can try out new things, a bit of common law here, a bit of, French law there, or a bit of Tanzanian law combined with, whatever. Let them try out different things. That's my recommendation.
All right, thank you very much. As you give Sharia to,
Thank you.
2 minutes, Sharia, as you take you 2 minutes, very
Very quick. Here's the thing. You asked me a question around what happened with me at the airport, right? So I just want to mention just that, and then I'll get on to your answer. But it'll be within 2 minutes. So, to enable acceptance and at multiple places and digitizing Tanzania, Zanzibar in general, we have realized what the problem is. The problem is A, could be avoidance of tax, B, could be the cost of acceptance. So what we are doing is we're coming out with 2 new solutions, which is Tap on Phone, which is basically tokenization and making sure that your phone is your acceptance device, and the pricing for that is going to be half of what is the pricing today on a normal POS machine. So that's something that we're bringing. QR, also we're taking that down to a level where the merchants find it very easily comparable to mobile money, comparable to the cost of cash, so that we level the playing field. Now, that aside, Elsie is recording this. Okay, I see. Good. Now, here's the last thing. Now, I will give you an example. I was sitting with US Ambassador Meg Whitman in Kenya while she was trying to broker a deal between Moderna and the government of Kenya to set up a vaccine factory worth $500 million. And what I saw there was exactly that decentralized approach that Nick was saying just now. It was taking the ownership rules. There was a tough ownership law, let's say, which warranted majority ownership from a Kenyan. Okay, the CEO was there. The CEO said, I've got these reservations. Can we come somewhere in the middle? A decision was taken, yes. A bill will be tabled to the President of Kenya and we will get this thing done. Secondly, it was around the increased tax that was being applied for a foreign direct investment coming in. And there also a decision was taken that on export of services there will be a reduction in tax, and this was announced by the President. Now what happened here? There was a vision that we need to do this. There is a clear foreign direct investment that's coming in. Okay, what does it take? Some stakeholders all got together and said, yes, this makes sense for Kenya, this makes sense for Moderna, this creates more jobs in Kenya, we should bring this in, and then bring in the technology also, right? This deal at the AmCham in Kenya a few months back was signed and announced by the ambassador and the CEO, and the President of Kenya was present there. So to me, that was a great example of how we need to look at decentralized ways. Instead of just designing a policy where the stakeholders and the consumers of that policy are not on the table, it is important that you bring them on the table when you're designing the policy, and then be willing to be flexible wherever it makes sense. Policies are not supposed to be cast in stone and are perfect. You know, they're made by human beings. They have improvements that you need to always make to those policies. So it's a learning process. And as long as we think like that, then new solutions will come into play. You will create incubation, you'll create new business models, and it'll be great for Zanzibar and for Tanzania in the long run.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I think my parting shot is very simple. We've had a lot of stories of what you're doing in different parts of the world. Silas within Dar. The next time we bring the panelists here, tunaomba tusikilize vitu ambavyo wamefanya Zanzibar. We want to hear the stories now coming out from Zanzibar, because you've already talked about what you're doing in the other areas. We want to see this thing coming out of fruition. We want examples to be linked to Zanzibar. Tunataka tusikie tulifanya hivi Zanzibar sehemu fulani, and these are the results. And we're actually exporting what we've done in Zanzibar to the world. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Jamani, naomba tuwapigie makofi. Thank you, asanteni sana. Thank you. Over to you, MC.
Thank you very much, the panelists. That was very interesting, and I'm really looking forward to all the promises that have been given. We hope they will come true one day, and we'll be here to witness that day. Thank you very much. As we move to our next, the last session of our program today, I would like to call up on the stage the development partners, who are the last panelists for today. The development partners, please take the chairs. And also, I would like to welcome again Dr. Tahir, who will be the moderator. Please, let's be mindful of the time. Let's make sure we finish before 5, because we have other program. Very interesting one. The last part is always the best. So enjoy. Thank you very much.
Hi again, everyone. Just try this time to be as brief as possible, because the time is really not on our side, and we don't want you to fall asleep over here. So start by giving a floor to the 4 of you. Please introduce yourself and tell us in very brief what you're doing generally, and also specifically if you have any initiative, which we hope you do in Zanzibar, it will be great to hear about that. Thank you. Start with you, Sadiq.
Yes, hello. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Sadiq Masomhe. I'm working with PATH as business analyst. So as PATH, what we are currently doing in Zanzibar, we are supporting a number of digital initiatives in the health sector funded by USAID and CDC. And that includes the development of some interoperability layer, which allows now data exchange between different systems in the health sector, which I think is very key for the government with the strategy. We understand we have different systems by different stakeholders, and it's crucial for those systems to be able to share data, and we have developed that, which is now in its second year. But we're also developing some system for the lab and some community engagement as well. But also have been supporting different entities as well in Zanzibar, and that includes some work with UNICEF to develop the disaster management system, some work with GIZ on health insurance, so we're working with them with some medical coding. But also we have some work with the World Bank Wing, which basically supporting the digital initiatives on the disability part. So from all that, we can see a lot of appetite and good progress in Zanzibar in terms of data use in the health sector and beyond. And with the strategy, we're looking forward to more progress. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Oh, good afternoon. My name is Ivana Damyanov. I'm with UNCDF, UNCDF's Inclusive Digital Economies team. And what we do is we catalyze participation in and growth of digital economies. We have 4 pillars that we focus on and that we work through. Those would be policy and advocacy, infrastructure, innovation, and skills. We're based in Dar es Salaam, so most of our activities and work is focused on mainland. However, we are expanding our interest and involved in quite a number of different initiatives. We work under a program funded by the EU called Digital for Tanzania. And under that program, we focus on infrastructure and innovation, really looking at the financial ecosystem. So under infrastructure, we're looking at digitalization of MFIs and SACCOs, for example, working with government and private sector on data analysis and using data for decision making. Under innovation, we really primarily focus on fintechs. Fintechs with a holistic view and support of fintechs and really growing the fintech ecosystem. We've established an accelerator called PesaTech, and then we're also looking to see how we can support the fintechs who are in the early growth stage. So that could be enabling more investor-friendly environment, bringing investors into the country, working with government on policies and such. And in Zanzibar, we have really understood that one of the, or what's caught our attention is really these special economic zones. So something like Silicon Zanzibar or like the future cities that you're developing, we believe in bringing private sector in, especially in creating a digital hub in Zanzibar, because we do think that there's a lot of transfer of knowledge and skills that can happen through private sector. And also, let's not forget sustainability. So that has also brought up for us, or started us thinking about how can we prepare the youth of Zanzibar to take advantage of these opportunities. And so we're also looking at developing a program on ICT upskilling for youth in Zanzibar, which is still in the very early stages, but we look forward to engaging with all of you on that.
Thank you. Habari ya mchana. Habari za mchana. Asante. My name is Dr. Jema Bisimba. I'm a senior health policy advisor and I work for USAID. USAID is the United States government for international development. And for the past, I think, almost 60 years, we've been partnering with the government of Zanzibar to support development, specifically in the areas of health, education, and economic growth. And here today I'll be speaking more on the health because I'm coming from the health side, but we've been doing a lot in the education and also economic growth. And in terms of health, as I think as the Director of Preventive Services have been saying, we've been working with them for the past, I think more than 3 years now, in supporting them in the digital solutions for the health sector. And specifically, we've helped them to establish the strong digital health leadership and governance, which has been in place and operable for I think since 2021. And we've also funded development of the 5-year strategy on the digital health implementation roadmap with 2020-2025, which has aligned all the work of donors and implementers in the health sector and under the leadership of the Ministry of Health. And we have been also supporting the team to institutionalize the data use, as the previous speaker said. You know that we are collecting a lot of data, but then it is not the culture of people to use the data for decision making. So since this digital solution is bringing up the solutions to come there have data on the timely but also quality data, we're also helping the people or the community to use that data timely for accurate decision making or the decision making the right time. And we've been also supporting to create critical foundation systems in the digitalization. For instance, we have been able to support development of the health workers registry, also health facility registries, and also the products, different products, pharmaceutical products registry, which has also been paving the way into the digitalization of the delivery of services. And we have also been able to deploy an interoperable but also scalable client-centered end-user system for the health service delivery. So really we've been doing a lot in the health sector, and we've seen a lot of improvement in terms of efficiency in the service delivery. But we still also have to do a lot in terms of integrating these solutions, also kind of avoiding the silo systems and making the systems talking to each other. Yeah, I'll stop it for now.
Assalamu alaikum. Naitwa Joseph Rubambe, nimetokea the Tony Blair Institute. We are based out of Zanzibar, tuko hapa Mazizini, lakini pia we have our presence around the region, Kenya being one of them, Rwanda as well, Zambia and Malawi, among other countries. We're present in about 35 countries. Specifically as the Tony Blair Institute, tunafanya kazi na viongozi wa kisiasa, serikali, kuwasaidia kudeliver their ambitions. So sisi tunafanya kazi kwa karibu sana na Wizara ya Afya hapa. Tunafanya kazi na Wizara ya Fedha, Ofisi ya Rais pia kupitia the Presidential Delivery Bureau kutekeleza zile priorities za Mheshimiwa Rais hapa Zanzibar. Moja ya miradi ambayo tunaifanya sasa hivi ni kwamba tunafanya kazi na Wizara ya Infrastructure, Communication and Technology tukiwasaidia kureview their ICT policy. Moja ambayo kazi ambayo tumetoka kumaliza sasa hivi ni kwamba tumetoka kuitathmini sera na tunaandika report ya kuweza kuitayarisha kuanza kureview hiyo policy. So we work very closely with Dr. Mzee and his team, but we also work with IGAS on the digital strategy. We provided some input to the digital strategy, and we're hoping that we can also help them on the other items on the roadmap as well. We're currently piloting a GIS project with the Commission of Lands, where we're hoping that the services could be used kwenye mifumo yao ya ardhi, kwa mfano ile land administration system, so we can provide more up-to-date imagery, satellite imagery, to help with location of property, to help with urban planning, to help with forestry, emergency response, na vitu kama hivyo. Na pia we are a member of the task force for the Silicon Zanzibar. We're closely with the PPP, Investment and Economic Affairs, where we're hoping to attract tech companies and talent to Zanzibar. I think that's it in a nutshell. But yeah, tuko hapa Mazizini, and we look forward to being part of this strategy and contributing. Asanteni.
Great. From the introduction, it's obvious that we all we have a group of very strategic partners. So hopefully we'll get a very brief but useful insight. And I'll start with you, Joseph. Looking at the strategy, and it's good that you have reviewed it and provided comments. What role do you think it will help to improve good governance, accountability, and performance monitoring? So if this is manageable or can be done at the government level, obviously the community will be benefited from that, because accountability and monitoring, not very high in terms of in various grades. Of course, good governance is improving, but these two components seemingly we're lagging behind in the government domain. So,
I think one of the things that needs to be well defined is the legal and regulatory space. So we have to work on ensuring that tunatengeneza mazingira ambayo yatasupport good governance. Nilipata fursa ya kuwa kwenye study ambayo jaribu kuangalia how we can enhance governance in public service specifically. And one of the issues that came up strongly was that taratibu zile kanuni haziko very clear kwenye a lot of areas. So unakuta viongozi wanafanya kazi lakini hawana, sio kwenye mazingira ambayo yanawaforce kuwa accountable, because it's important that mtumishi anaelewa kila anachotakiwa kufanya, responsibility yake, and that is made very clear, and that is part of their performance management as well. So we looked at the possibility of implementing things like performance management contracts kwa ajili ya government officials, especially senior government officials, where it has been successful in countries kama Rwanda, and we're hoping that something like that could be considered future. So I think that's one area that would help improve governance. But of course, I'm a technology person, so nitasema pia using technology could play a big part in improving governance. The thing about technology in general is that tunapenda kuiangalia in isolation as a separate entity, and we see this kama wenzangu walivyosema previously, that technology is being looked at as an expense. So we just provide the infrastructure, maybe the computers, the tools, and then that's it. People continue with their business, but that's not how we should be using technology. There is a need for the government to embrace technology as a language. And when I say that, I mean, kama vile tunavyoongea sasa hivi tunatumia Kiswahili, tunatumia Kiingereza, technology should become a language of doing everything that we're doing, whether it's in government, it's in the private sector. We need to start asking ourselves, how can we best perform our duties using technology? Your task still remains the same. You're a doctor, you're a specialist in education. How can you use technology to better serve the community you're serving, kama ni kufundisha au ni kutibu watu? That's why I think tumefall short kidogo kwamba tunaiangalia technology in isolation. So let's use the technology kuwasaidia wananchi na kuhakikisha kwamba tunatengeneza mazingira ambayo yanaisupport hiyo technology kwa kutengeneza sheria, kwa kutengeneza kanuni, kwa kubuild hizo skills ambazo zinahitajika. Na nimeona kwamba skills is one of the issues ambazo ni moja ya pillars katika strategy. So that's a very good ambition, kwamba kuhakikisha kwamba tuanze kujenga skills za wananchi, za wafanyakazi wa serikali ili waweze kutumikia vizuri. Nadhani hayo ndio maoni yangu kuhusu kusaidia jinsi ya kuimprove governance kwenye serikali.
Thank you. I have another question, which is I think will be my last question also to you. It seems that there's a bit of confusion, especially in the government domain, civil servants, about digital transformation and digital economy. So you hear about digital transformation, and then what comes out often, it's something to do with digital economy, revenue collection, and this and that. But digital transformation, it has a broader role, and that role also touches the community at large. So of course these two probably they have to go concurrently, to succeed. But what role do you think your institute has to, or can play to help the government understand and disentangle these two things?
So the way TBI works is that, so we support government leaders with delivery through strategy, policy, enabled by technology. Policy sets the stage for what your ambitions are. You come up with a goal, and then you create some sort of a policy. And then you build a strategy on how you're going to implement, how you're going to achieve that vision that you want. So we come in where we offer technical support, but we put an emphasis on technology kwa sababu we feel that that is one way that you can speed up things and you can leapfrog a lot of the challenges that are currently in developing countries kama Zanzibar kwa mfano. The advantage that we have, and when I say leapfrog, the advantage that we have kama Zanzibar is that we don't have the baggage that comes from having legacy systems, our legacy technology kubwa ambazo zilikuwepo that were pre-existing. So we can take advantage of that and embrace technology and move forward faster. We've seen this happen in the area mambo ya M-Pesa. We've seen this happen in the area ya communication, where we've leapfrogged in front mbele ya hata countries that are in the West, simply because we embrace that technology without holding back in the worry kwamba tuna legacy systems ambazo pia inabidi ziunganishwe as well. So your question regarding digital transformation. So that happens first. Digital transformation involves changing the processes that were typically manual, that become digital. You use digital technologies to whatever, operationalize whatever you're doing. And then eventually that leads to a digital economy. You start building a digital economy. Uchumi ambao unajengwa kwa kutumia mifumo ya kidijitali. Utalii unakuwa supported na kidijitali, education inakuwa supported na digital, health inakuwa supported na digital, then that becomes a digital economy. As TBI, tuna focus zaidi kwenye technology kama nilivyosema. Sisi tayari tumeshafanya commitment ya kuwa hapa Zanzibar, tumejenga ofisi na we're hoping kwamba we can be part of all these ambitions that the government is pursuing. We're hoping that government buy-in tumeshaipata. Now we're hoping that we can work with the rest of the government to push the digital agenda, watu waweza embrace. Because one of the things we've found is that we have top management buy-in from the president. I mean, he's made it very clear kwamba technology is an ambition. I think the challenge, and this comes from the study that we did, is that ukishafika hapa chini kidogo, kwenye senior leadership, chini below, just below ministers and so on, there's a generation that is usually referred to, and this term yaitengeneza wanajiita wenyewe, wanajiita BBC, born before computers. So this generation inakuwa ngumu kidogo kwenye kukubali mambo ya technology. As a result, mindset yao inakuwa bado haijabadilika kidogo. Wanakuwa wakipata chochote kuhusu technology wanatend kukipush kwa wale wa chini. And as a result, wale watu wa chini they end up doing very manual tasks just to support their senior leaders. So their senior leaders haven't really caught on to the agenda at digital, and wanafail kuipush down na kuhakikisha kwamba serikali inakuwa ya kidijitali. Matokeo yake unakuwa tu na a few things that are digital, digitized forms, maybe emails and so on, lakini ile thinking bado haijabadilika. That's where we come in. Tunasaidia kutengeneza sera, tunasaidia kutengeneza mikakati au strategy ambayo itaweza kupush hivi vitu kuhakikisha kwamba vinashuka chini kuanzia top leadership mpaka kwa yule mtumishi wa umma ambaye yuko chini.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And over to you, Gemma. First, we'd like to hear, because obviously from, sorry? Gemma, and then I'll just come, yes, just go like that. So we have had quite a lot. So obviously there's a information and data that flows between the sector, and also there's another information that goes, across the sector. That's when it goes across the sector, it's really, kind of challenged to be integrated and to be, used by all relevant stakeholders. So your organization in this aspect, I mean, how do you think you can help Special Ministry of Health to solve that challenge?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think for us, looking at the strategy, the one that will be launched tomorrow that we're discussing about today, I think that having that strategy first is kind of a solution or a road to the solution for many of the challenges that we've been seeing on the ground. As I've said, and as I think as what also other people have been saying, when technology started, and from the presentation this morning that it is coming with the exponential growth, it started very slowly, and we had so many systems and so many digital solutions that were implemented in silos, and we within very short time, we found ourselves having so many systems that were not talking to each other, and instead of them creating solutions, they were creating confusions, because as we've said, there is a very low knowledge on the ground, so it also took a lot of time for people to learn, or the community to learn on these different solutions, but also it was not helping them. As we said in the morning, I think the Director of Preventive Services mentioned that the EMR, or the electronic medical system, was not talking to the, let's say, pharmaceutical system. So a person will go and take medications from different pharmacies and will not know. But also that is not talking to maybe the surveillance system. So we are not helping each other, we're not helping the sector. Instead, we are kind of creating more burden to the system. So I think this strategy, having a pillar on integration of systems, will be a starting point for us to come together and systematize or integrate these all systems, so that we have a system that will be operable or interoperable and talking to each other to help the sector for better impact. And as you said, we are very much committed to helping this be implementable.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question to that. Obviously, from the documented strategy, and in much of your work you have been doing, it's based on the public, sector strengthening. But what role do you have? Any role, or you see any role of private sector that you can support in Zanzibar, so that it can also play an active role to improve the system? Because it has worked in many sectors. It can work in health sector, also having active private sector, both financing and service delivery.
Yes, so for us, we are mainly working with the government or the public sector, but we are working with the private sector in terms of our implementing partners, but also we are supporting both the private and the public facilities in terms of the health sector. So we also see the value that the private health facilities will bring in making these solutions come into play. So I would say right now we're not working very much with the private sector, but it's something that we need to look at and kind of explore more in the future. Yeah.
Thank you. My final question to you, of course, you're a big actor, and when everyone sees USA, we get excited and think, oh, you have a very big role to play. So it will be good to hear if you, because apparently most of your support has been done in a way, in a piecemeal, technical support here and there. But do you have any plan to have, Zanzibar-based project that can in a larger scale, or that's not in a horizon?
So Zanzibar-based, you mean us being here?
Yes, yes, Zanzibar.
Okay, so we are based in Dar es Salaam, but we are obviously working with Zanzibar government, and we are working, as you said, our model is working through our implementing partners, as Park has said. We're also working with Abd Associates and the PS3. They're all based here. So we are kind of we provide support for them to implement it directly with the government here. Yeah, and we're kind of overseeing from afar. Yes.
Thank you. I'll move to you, Ivana. I have, I think, 3 very short questions. And the first one, looking at the strategy and in the angle of enabling environment and regulation, adaptability, or what's needed to be done. Can you share with us just 2 key issues you think either they are missing or they are there that really Zanzibar as a country needs to focus on?
I wish my colleague Annette was here instead of me, but I'll try to give this a go. We really primarily work through the financial sector and the financial systems. So we have been working with Bank of Tanzania. I think one thing, as we've been discussing a lot of how do you work with government and what is the best approach, I think the BOT has really set the standards and example of how we can work together. And they are, if you remember, they're the ones who actually brought M-Pesa to us there in Tanzania almost 10 years ago. They allowed for the MNOs, the telcos to come in, to many different ones, to try, to learn, and then they developed the policy and regulation around it. Once again, the BOT now is just established or developed the FinTech regulatory sandbox, which will allow FinTechs with innovative ideas who want to test and pilot some of their ideas without going through the whole compliance part to do that. So I think that is really an admirable approach that we can learn from. I think we're also working with Ministry of ICT here, Dr. Mzee, on the ICT policy renewal. I think that has been a while since it's been updated, and looking forward to working with TBI on this as well, and really trying to see how it can match and integrate with the Zanzibar digital government strategy.
Thank you. Another question. Obviously, over and over again during the discussion today, inclusivity, it's a major issue, especially given the Zanzibar social dynamics. So, and I know you have a tool that can, help to monitor inclusive digital, economy. So, when you look at this strategy, do you think it's something that can feed into the tool that you have developed in mainland that can work well here, or there are still some pieces that they need to, yes?
Right, so UNCDF has developed an inclusive digital economy scorecard, which is actually a way of looking at the digital economy in different countries, and then also having an inclusivity index as well incorporated to evaluate how the different segments of a country have been addressed through these policies and regulations. And it actually follows very close to our foundational pillar. So it looks at policy and regulation. It looks at innovation, infrastructure, and skills. I think that they have been touched upon in large part here in the digital strategy for Zanzibar. I think, and I think there is a little. It's very ambitious. I think that's my. I think EGAS has a large work for it to be done in the future, but I do think that it is looking at it. I think what's maybe missing is the inclusivity aspect. I'm not really seeing a lot of focus or targeting of gender, youth, MSMEs, and that type of segmentation. So that could be something that could be developed or improved. I think the other area is the private sector, but of course, I mean, understandably, it's a Zanzibari digital government strategy, right? So we look forward to more or a different strategy or a parallel strategy or an integrated strategy on that focuses on private sector as well.
Thank you. My last question, and this is very quick before I move to Sadiq, is that I think it was in advertised that you're conducting some study or looking for a consultant to conduct a study to assess the skills of different institutions in Zanzibar that are in digital sphere. I don't know, is there anything or information, development in that or finding that worth sharing? Yes.
Right, so this comes from, I think, our support or our interest in facilitating the involvement of technologically enabled companies and firms to come to Zanzibar. What we've noticed is that it's an enormous opportunity for Zanzibar to benefit, not only from transfer of knowledge, but apprenticeships, employment, and we feel that the Zanzibar youth are probably not at the level yet where they can really be absorbed by the technology firms that are coming in. So for that to happen, what we're doing right now is doing a landscape of research on supply and demand to better understand what the market gaps are, especially in terms of demand for ICT skill. And then we're looking at supply, what the universities are offering, what the training centers are offering, and seeing how can those be improved so that we can actually create a pathway for the universities, the training centers, to be able to feed into a lot of the market demand. So the market demand, though, can be private sector driven, but also, as mentioned in your digital strategy, it can also be public sector driven. So that's basically the focus of what we're doing and hoping to develop.
Thank you. Great. Well, finish with Sadiq, and I have two questions for you. One is that Nick and also the document itself, they stressed constantly been stressed the issue of disruption or association between digital transformation and disruption. That it's a must, it's a good thing, but it can also, in some cases, be not a good thing, and for various reasons. So can you tell us if it's a health sector or any other, system that you think that may, the country doesn't need to disrupt them very much, where the, systematic or, continuity or stagnant is a good thing?
Yeah, thanks. I think you're right. It has been documented in the strategy about disruption. When I was going through it, one thing stood out a bit. In the modern world, the master of disruptions are the startups. It's a bit unfortunate that in the whole of the strategy, we only have startups being mentioned once. So if you do a quick search, startup is only been mentioned once, as in one time only. And we know startups are the masters of disruption. So I think you're right, disruption is very important, but this is government. So as usually people say, government don't do pilots because it's a bit risky to do it at a pilot level. So as much as it is good to open for disruption, the government might have to play a role to provide some sort of like frameworks that can be used for other people to implement. And the good thing about Zanzibar, as much as we want to start and lead or maybe do some progress, we have good examples from other places. So I'll say one of the best places that we can learn about how now the government can create a framework for other people to disrupt is countries like Estonia, for example, where their digital transformation is built around the once only principle. So everything that you want to do, and they even go further to even come up with a Public Information Act, which basically says it prohibits different agencies or different public information to be collected more than once in different databases. So if you have one database once, other people have to reuse it. So I think that could be the thinking when it comes to disruption. Yes, we want to have disruption, we want to have innovation, we want to have solutions, but what does it mean to existing platforms? What does it mean to the foundation system, etc.? So that we build on what is existing. Because we've heard from other colleagues and in previous discussions also about silos, etc. If you're not careful about disruption, which is if it's not governed, you may end up having multiple systems collecting similar information. And now when you go to the public or the health worker, it becomes tedious, it becomes wasted your time, etc. So in terms of where the systems can be, etc., I think Zanzibar, we were not necessarily going to a specific system, but it's more about the engagement of the private sector, engagement with the startups. As we heard from the minister, we only had the first startup this year, which is a bit late. So I think to me, instead of just saying systems per se, it's more about the engagement. And we know the youth are the ones that are innovative, etc. So once they're empowered, they can come up with the solution. So one thing that can help there, which stood out from the strategy as well, is where it was clearly defined that the focus of the strategy is not about priorities of the government agencies, but rather priorities of the people and the businesses, which I think to me that underlines the whole need and the foundation for the disruption. We need to think about not what Zura wants, not what IGA wants. So whatever IGA wants, Zura, Zawa wants, should be about the people and the businesses. Once that is understood, then the disruption door is clearly open.
Thank you. And my next and last question is that if you, I got you correct, when you were introducing yourself, you mentioned that you are creating a system that basically integrates the data sets that is set up by the president for the purpose of readiness to help people during disaster. Sounds like a good move. I'm wondering, is it possible or a constraint for it not to go all the way and create a integrated single registry that can be used for that and for identifying also the same group or other social protection initiatives or targeted socioeconomic
different initiatives. So what are the reasons just to narrow the scope instead of having it going on the way to be integrated?
Yes, I think what the second vice president office is doing, basically it's about integration. Because one thing that needs to be clear when it comes to digital solutions or digital tools at the national level, it's not necessarily about having this one system only and everyone uses that system. It's about potentially allowing multiple systems that are collecting individual information and integrating them. So what they're doing with the disaster component is basically open up the doors to have data from all these different agencies that are playing different roles in that area. So that is similar to what we're doing with PATH and USA, for example, the health sector. Because you have people who are handling logistics. And logistics on its own needs a whole set of data management processes, etc. You have people managing health facilities, you have people managing electronic medical record systems. But in the end, you have this Minister of Health that has to make some plans and decisions, which has to take into account human resource, EMR records, disease patterns, logistics, etc. But for them, for him, it doesn't matter. They don't have to go into all these different systems. So I think that approach now has been done with disaster management. It allows all these different players to have their own systems, but in the end, the second vice president, what they want is to have a single window where they can have all this data pulled in and they can make plans across all the disaster levels in terms of planning, mitigation, and preparedness.
Thank you, all of you, for very brief but insightful response. And we have touched many things, but at least to me, the three of stand out is the mindset challenge. That this is not needs to be kind of without the mixed work. It will be useful before they engage with the public for themselves to have reality. And second is the issue about gender and youth. Both of them are very important, but youth, given that the Zanzibar population is growing rapidly, to be included in whatever upcoming opportunities, that's definitely a good thing. And the last one about the startups, which also I suppose it is with the youth and the gender, but it is very good. So I don't want to kind of giving the finishing words. I'll give you opportunity for just 1 minute each, just to say in a simple sentence what the kind of.
Very good, insightful. So I don't want to, kind of giving the finishing words. I'll give you opportunity for just 1 minute each, just to say in a simple sentence what's the kind of the most or critical thing they think, a positive that comes from this strategy, so we can finish in a positive or more, good outlook going forward. Thank you. Start with you, Sadiq.
So I think to me, one thing that stood out, which I think is very crucial, especially at the stage where Zanzibar is the first pillar, which is talking about the governance, because that becomes very crucial. If we want the government agencies to collaborate in an effective way, to have the systems that talk to each other, if we want the private sector to work in the way that we're expecting, if we have people to innovate in a way that they are not worried about intellectual property, etc., if we want people to come from abroad and invest in Zanzibar, I think the first pillar is very crucial, the governance aspect. And now it's about how far do we want to go into that? How far do we want to establish the laws? Do we want to go as far as, for example, what Estonia did and say we prohibit establishing databases that are collecting similar information? How far do we want to go with the governance aspect? Do we want to be a roadmap where we have phases of more like becoming even stiffer rules and regulation, etc.? But yeah, I would say that is one very crucial thing that stood out to me in the strategy, the first pillar, governance aspect.
Right. I think I'll make a point maybe on upskilling, specifically around youth. I think the future of work is digital, and it is not confined to borders. Those are Zanzibari borders, Tanzania borders, African borders. And if we need to equip our youth with those skills so they can take advantage of those opportunities. And at the same time, we need to support our universities, our training centers, our institutions to be able to provide market demand-driven skills. And I think if we have that combination, and on top of that, we allow the private sector to come in, we have a winning combination for explosive or exponential economic growth in Zanzibar.
Thank you. And I think for me also, I'll start by congratulating the government for this great milestone. But also one thing that really came up from the strategy is the importance on the human capital development. I think that goes in line with what the previous speaker has been saying. If we want really to go as what the minister said this morning, that the Zanzibarians or the community really take the lead on this, we really need to empower the community, we need to empower the people to have the right skills and the right expertise, which will also lead into the changing of the attitude towards the digital. So I think we really need to strengthen on that human capital development. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, because as my colleagues pointed out, the strategy is quite ambitious. We should focus on finding quick wins that will then build the momentum that will enable us to achieve the large ambitions or the very, tuweze kwenda kwenye ambitions ambazo zitakuwa ziwe kubwa zaidi. So we'll start by working with agencies, departments. What can we do now in this digital transformation to improve our everyday work? And then from there, that will build the momentum, and the momentum will eventually build into the policies and strategies that will then be developed so that we can build on to what we're trying to do, because we can't expect this to happen overnight. So it's the small things that we do that will eventually lead to the bigger things that we want to happen in the future. That's my take.
I want to add anything more so that I won't ruin this excellent wrap-up. So just want to thank you all. It's been a pleasure to exchange with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear panelists and our moderator, Doctor. That was very interesting to listen, and that was the last of our presentation for today. I have quick announcements to share with you guys before I call Mr. Nicholas on behalf of Mr. Said to officially close. First, I'd like you to know that we have an evening tea prepared for you guys outside at Jahazi restaurant. When you just get outside, you'll be escorted over there. Number 2 is tomorrow we expect to have His Excellency Dr. Hussein Mwinyi as our guest of honor. So we are expected to arrive here around 8:30 because he'll be joining us around 9 o'clock, and it will be a half day, unlike today. And last but not the least, thank you very much for being with us this morning. It was a pleasure having you. I hope it was a very productive day, just as it was in my side. And I would like to call Mr. Nicholas now. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Habari zenu tena. What a long day. Siku ndefu sana, si ndio? Tumesikia mawazo nyingi sana mpaka hata mimi nimechoka kidogo. Really, we had 3 very good panels and really insightful inputs from government officials, from the private sector, from the development partners. I do have to yet again commend Dr. Twahir on his moderating skills. If you're a panelist, you know you're not going to get away with just speaking words. He's going to come after you. He's going to make sure he's going to tease out the real meaning. And I'm saying this because one of the common themes you heard even on this last panel was the strategy is ambitious. It's not meant to be just a document, from what I understand. The government is serious about this. So if we want to transform Zanzibar in 5 years and achieve the targets, it's going to take, like I said earlier, each one of us, and I do ask you, reflect on what you can do, each of us as individuals. what we can do to help make this happen. The government's committed. We're going to hear from His Excellency again tomorrow. And you've heard it from all the government officials here today. Yes, there might be still some alignment to be done across the 184 different agencies, yes, but that's going to happen. And I, for one, am very excited about this. So, on behalf of Mr. Saeed, the Managing Director for the e-Government Agency for Zanzibar, I would like to say thank you all very much for your patience and your insight and your contributions, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning as well. Thank you all, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.